echo. I think this might be better. Well, this is activity 42. A lot of this will be very familiar to you because of your project-based learning activity with creating the 3D model. But this also introduced some other concepts that are important to understand and learn. So this is the reading that goes along with activity 42. You're going to use that KWL sheet that you were given by your teacher to guide you, as well as writing down some notes as you continue through this activity. And when you get to the points that ask you to stop and write, record some notes. So a typical cell. As scientists continue to study cells, they notice structures inside the cells. From observing many kinds of cells in thousands of organisms, biologists discovered that some structures are found in all or nearly all cells. These structures are so common that they are usually included in models or drawings of a typical cell. The most common structure of cells is the cell membrane. And again, you can see all those things over here on the left-hand side. This membrane separates the cell from its environment. Every kind of cell, whether a bacterium or a cell from an elephant or from a giant oak tree, has a cell membrane. As you learned in activity 40, a cell model, the cell membrane acts as a barrier to control what enters or leaves the cell. Somehow, everything that enters or leaves the cell must cross this membrane. The material enclosed by the cell membrane is called the cytoplasm, which means the cell material. In the cytoplasm, the cell breaks down nutrients from food and builds the new substances it needs to grow and to carry out its other functions. This is a stopping to think section. So you're asked to respond to these questions. How did scientists discover the common structure of cells? And B, what are some of the common structures of a cell? So hit the pause button, respond to those questions in your notebook. In 1831, Robert Brown identified a small dark center within many cells. He called this center the nucleus. You were probably able to observe the nucleus in onion, amoeba, and human cells. Most organisms, except for bacteria, have a cell nucleus. The nucleus is a small compartment within the cell. It is separated from the rest of the cell by a nuclear membrane. The nucleus contains the majority of the genetic information of the cell and directs the cell's activities, including growth and reproduction. Here is the second stopping to think. A, why is the nucleus an important part of most cells? And B, what type of organism does not contain a nucleus? Hit the pause button and record the answers to those questions, please. Most cells have other tiny structures that help them do many jobs. These structures are called organelles, or little organs. They are often surrounded by their own special membranes. Some of the organelles can just barely be seen with a light microscope. Some of the jobs performed by these organelles include obtaining and storing energy, helping cells move and divide, and making substances that are either used in the cell or transported to other parts of the body. The organelles that produce energy are called mitochondria. Singular is mitochondrion. Mitochondria use oxygen and nutrients to produce most of the energy that a cell needs. For this reason, they are sometimes called the cell's power plant. Different types of cells have different numbers of mitochondria, ranging from 1 to thousands. Cells that need a lot of energy, such as heart cells and muscle cells, have more mitochondria than cells with low energy requirements. Mitochondria are usually rod-shaped, but in some cells they can be round. Here is the third stopping to think. A, what are some of the functions of organelles? B, what do mitochondria use to produce energy for a cell? You can see in this diagram we have the body. Inside of the body is an organ system, just one of them. Let's take the digestive system. The digestive system is broken up into organs. One of the organs in the digestive system is the stomach. organs are broken down further into tissue. You can see the example of the tissue there. And we break that tissue further into cells, and then cells are broken into organelles. A plant's cell's structure is a little different than an animal cell's structure. In addition to the cell membrane, it has a cell wall. The cell wall provides additional support and stability to a plant cell. Green plants also have organelles called chloroplasts. Chloroplasts absorb light and use it along with water and carbon dioxide to produce sugars for the cell. The cell uses the sugars as nutrients. This whole process is called photosynthesis. There are some protists, such as algae, that also have chloroplasts and photosynthesize. Plant cells, like animal cells, have mitochondria that use oxygen and nutrients to produce energy. Over there on the left-hand side of the page, you can see the plant cell diagram. Here's the fourth stopping to think. A, why do plant cells have a cell wall in addition to a cell membrane? And B, what do chloroplasts use to produce nutrients for plant cells and some protist cells? What can you learn from studying cells? Information about cells can be used for practical purposes, such as treating different kinds of diseases. Here are two examples. AIDS is a disease of one group of cells within the human body. Investigating how these cells work normally and what goes wrong in the cells of a person with AIDS helps scientists understand the disease and develop treatments. Human blood contains red blood cells. Each red blood cell lives in the human bloodstream for only about 120 days. New red blood cells are constantly being formed as old ones die. Researchers have used information about how new red blood cells develop to prepare a drug that causes more red blood cells to form. This drug is given to patients who require certain kinds of surgery or to people with illnesses that reduce the number of red cells in the blood. The drug helps patients build up red cells and require fewer blood transfusions. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see a picture that has the caption underneath. A cell biologist used an electron microscope to take this photo of HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, on the surface of a human white blood cell. Cell biology. Cell biology is the special branch of biology that studies cells and how they work. Cell biologists are fascinated by the variety of cells and the fantastic structures inside them. Some cell biologists study one type of cell, such as muscle cells. Others focus on special parts of cells, such as cell membranes, to understand how they work. Some of the questions that cell biologists try to answer are: how do the different cells in an organism work? What does each part of the cell do and how? How do the different cells in an organism communicate and control their activities so that things happen in the right place and at the right time? How can one fertilized human egg cell grow into a complex adult with many kinds of cells? How does a cell know when to divide? Scientists have found some exciting partial answers to these questions, but there is a great deal left to learn about cells. The caption underneath this picture says a cell biologist using an electron microscope. So here are some analysis questions. On page C60, your teacher will tell you which of these you may have to do. Thanks for listening. Hope you learned a lot. Bye.